Even the greatest TV shows can have character arcs that go nowhere. For example, I don't know, Breaking Bad and Marie's kleptomania. What was that all about? And being that wrestling is a TV show without an off-season, this kind of thing can happen all the time. Whether it's gimmicks that go on too long and fizzle out, or indeed those that get ripped off of our screen too soon and die before they hit their stride. Let's talk about some of them, because I'm Sai, this is What Culture, and here are 8 amazing wrestling gimmicks that died too soon. Number 8. Ron Killings. The firing of R-Truth in June 2025 was truly shocking, one of the most shocking moments of the year, and no, I'm not kidding. Not only does he have tenure and in fact a great reputation with several generations of fans, his recent output in the Judgment Day, and to a lesser extent part of the reunited Awesome Truth, saw him on arguably the best form of his entire career. It was a blunder for the ages that, in hindsight, was one of the first cracks to appear in the post-Vince WWE era. When there was a unanimous global outcry about the ridiculousness of Truth's termination, it was rightfully reassessed by the company, and news broke that Truth had been rehired. The next time we saw him on our screens after his shocking return, Truth climbed the announce desk and cut his dreads off live on television in an impassioned rage. He stunned the world by announcing that R-Truth was dead, and that his name was Ron Killings. And then it went nowhere, which is a real shame, because fans were so used to Truth's cuddly persona that the intimidating figure that Killings cut in his promo was shocking and refreshing in equal measure. It was genuinely uncomfortable to see a character who's usually so happy be this rageful. The drastic character change showed enormous promise, but it disappointingly only lasted a few weeks before Truth was back to his wacky antics. And he's great at that, but the fact that the Ron Killings character didn't even really get a chance to do anything will always be kind of a missed opportunity. Number 7. Bad News Barrett. Wade Barrett has become a cornerstone of WWE as part of its announce team, but as a wrestler, he felt terminally involved with the company's mid-card. He was perpetually involved through the 2010s in meaningless feuds and just kind of chucked the Intercontinental title between him and The Miz for a little while, it felt like. However, this all changed when his new catchphrase and the Bad News Barrett gimmick arrived, suggesting that he had many more strings to his bow. Carrying a gavel and eventually getting his own podium that would slowly rise out of the stage, Barrett would arrive to announce, "I'm afraid I've got some bad news. I'm afraid I've got a bad impression." It was a catchy one-liner used to further his own feuds, make announcements on behalf of whoever that week's authority figure was, or goad live audiences about the shortcomings of their local sports teams. It worked, and it raised Barrett's profile to a place that was much more befitting of his talent. For a gimmick that is so well remembered that you probably went, "Ah yes, of course," when the entry came up in this video, Wade's run as Bad News actually only lasted 18 months, less in fact. At which point he won the King of the Ring 2015 and became King Barrett. All of this to say, it's a shame because Bad News Barrett had a great blend of silliness and savagery that should have seen him create many more memorable moments as part of the main roster. Number 6. Rusev Day. After an initial run that included facing John Cena at WrestleMania 31, Rusev found himself a Bulgarian brute without any discernible direction. Losing 3 pay-per-views in a row to Cena didn't help his trajectory, and his stint in the aforementioned doomed League of Nations faction began 2 years of mid to lower card nothingness that saw him essentially become nothing more than a jobber with a generic foreign gimmick. Ugh. What made it worse was that Rusev would constantly deliver brilliant flourishes to his characters, even while clearly being out of favour with the creative team, which was a very irritating, frustrating state of affairs. And the absolute peak of all of this came when the Bulgarian brute delivered his masterpiece with Rusev Day. Declaring every day as Rusev Day, he nailed wrestling fan humour perfectly, especially when delivered with a stony-faced seriousness that only highlighted the comedic silliness of the whole thing. Former member of the Vaudevillains, Aiden English, was added to the mix, but the whole package's enormous popularity with fans was never translated into the kind of push that it deserved. Considering this constant ignoring of how over the catchphrase was, it was no real surprise when WWE let Rusev go, no matter how unjust it felt. Every day is still Rusev Day in my heart. Number 5. Elite Hunter Frankie Kazarian. SCU's gimmick of saying every place that they visited apart from Southern California was, quote, the worst place they've ever been to, led to them being one of the most popular acts on the indies. Even though Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian were crowned the first ever AEW Tag Team Champions, the pair and indie legend Christopher Daniels found it hard to gain that same momentum as part of the beginning of AEW. Spare thoughts for Frankie Kazarian and his Elite Hunter gimmick though. As the Elite turned heel and added the Good Brothers to their ranks, they began taking out several members of the roster that they had previously considered friends. When their attention was turned to Christopher Daniels and they put him on the shelf, Frankie Kazarian adopted the cigar-smoking badass character called the Elite Hunter. Clad in a leather jacket, the idea was that no matter where they went or what they were doing, the Elite Hunter was going to be a one-man thorn in their side, hell-bent on taking down AEW's premier group. Of course, this ended after just a few weeks when Doc Gallows flattened Kazarian, and the whole gimmick was dropped like it was just a figure of our imagination. Number 4, Damien Mizdow. Damien Sandow was always a talented member of WWE's main roster, playing an academic in a robe who cradled his mic in his hand like it was a delicate wine glass. He was a perfect blend of condescending, but also able to wear an egg on his face magnificently. A member of the intellectual elite might not have been a natural bedfellow for The Miz, but this duo was captivating for their entire time together. Sandow dropped his pretentious stick to be enamored with The Miz during his Hollywood phase, even changing his surname to Mizdow. He would mimic Miz's movements during promos, mirror his gesticulations during his entrances, and generally look at his cohort with hearts in his eyes. It was glorious and became even more endearing when Miz would take his anger and frustrations out on his lovable partner. The slow burn of Mizdow seeing Miz for the mean-spirited abuser that he was perfect. He would eventually turn on Miz at WrestleMania 31 in the Andre the Giant Battle Royale to a monster pop from the crowd, only to then be dumped out by The Big Show in one of the most Vince McMahon bookings in history. It killed the Mizdow momentum as soon as it began, and he would never recapture that spark again. Number 3, Tyler Breeze and Fandango as the Fashion Police. The tidal wave of TMZ-style programming that clogged up US television like an unflushable turd in the 2010s was as unavoidable as it was disgusting. It is pro wrestling's duty to reflect the current zeitgeist, and the team of Tyler Breeze and Fandango did an excellent job of transitioning from their decent Breezango team to parodying the mean-spirited commentary of people's appearance with their Fashion Police gimmick. This gimmick would come into its own during their Fashion Files skits. Aping the fonts and themes of shows like Law & Order SVU, Breeze and Deputy Dango would endeavour to take down members of the roster based on their fashion faux pas. It was spectacularly over the top, but it wasn't just goofy hijinks. It was genuinely well written comedically, and of course the timing of both was mwah, chef's kiss. But of course, at the time, the line stopped with Vince McMahon, a man whose idea of culture was about 40 years out of date and whose sense of humour is questionable. Let's call it questionable. And so the Fashion Police died before they really got an opportunity to spread their wings by taking advantage of everything that could have been in front of them on the main roster. And goddamn, this one hurts the most. Number 2, MJF in the Hurt Syndicate. MJF is one of the most consistent acts in pro wrestling. Over the course of AEW's lifespan, he has made almost everything thrown his way work and been relentlessly entertaining as both a face and a heel. His 2025 run as an honorary member of the Hurt Syndicate was something of a curveball, but yet again, turned it into solid gold. MVP and his Hurt Syndicate were turning into one of the most popular acts on the AEW roster, with their We Hurt People entrance music garnering an electric reaction at every show. Being the snake that he is, MJF wanted in on the group, with his sucking up to Bobby Lashley in particular making for great television. And eventually he got his way, and things were just going great. So it's a mystery then as to why it only lasted around 8 weeks in the summer of 2025 before MJF was booted from the group in a spectacular and emotional speech from MVP. The impending threat of Lashley coming for Maxwell because his selfishness threatened the fabric of the Hurt Syndicate was engaging and had bags of potential, but MJF entered a feud with Mark Briscoe instead before disappearing from our screens entirely. And again, MJF does amazing with everything that he's given, including this, even the short spell that it was, but you can't help but think that there was just meant to be more to this. And number 1, bum-ass Baron Corbin. Over the course of his 12 years with WWE, Baron Corbin demonstrated a serious amount of range. From a lone wolf to being commissioner of Monday Night Raw to being part of a great tag team with Bron Breakker to being Happy Corbin and even King of the Ring, WWE Creative asked an awful lot of Baron, and for the most part, he delivered. There was one particular gimmick that really worked a charm though, and that was bum-ass Baron Corbin. A truly unique gimmick in the world of pro wrestling, this character saw Corbin being the antithesis of the flashy lifestyle that superstars usually portray. No designer suits, no fashion brands, and absolutely no fancy walk into the arena, Corbin was a dishevelled and pitiful sight to behold. In a world where everything feels like it's been done before, this cut through. In interviews, Corbin confessed later that this character change was only intended to last 2 weeks. Nevertheless, it's a character that was generating a lot of sympathy and attention from the crowd, and it threatened to push Corbin into full babyface status before it was egregiously cut off in its prime.